We are the freak show. We walk around the city and everyone's just looking at us.
When the going gets rough, you know how the saying goes. Sometimes things happen. Life happens, and it's not always our fault. In this podcast, we'll feature real-life testimonials from people like you, from good times to bad, funny memories and hard lessons learned. Everyone has a story, and everyone has been there. From business owners to parents to young adults, the Hive Five aims to tell stories of overcoming the struggles of adulting while celebrating the little victories of life. In each podcast, our guests will give insight to 5 key takeaways from someone who's been there and done that, leaving you better than when you started. Thanks for listening today. My name is Kagan with BriteBee, and we also have Catherine Parker, Marketing Director of BriteBee on.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the High Five podcast.
Our guest today has a pretty unique story and experience, so we're excited to talk to Chris Hendrix, currently an international church planner located in Rome, Italy, with Converge Worldwide. He and his family moved to Rome last year, but before that worked in the oil and gas industry for over 10 years. And he has a really unique story and look forward to hearing from him. Chris, how are you?
Great, Kagan. Thanks for having me on.
We're really happy to have you, and we want to hear a little bit about what you're doing. So let's just dive in here. What are you doing in Rome?
So I am an international church planner. So someone might ask, what in the world is an international church planner? Well, let's talk about what is a church first. A church is basically a community of people who are pursuing after the same vision and mission, right? So how is that different from any other nonprofit organization or business? In the church, we believe that God's designed each one of us with a purpose in mind, and that's to glorify Him and have a relationship with Him. So the church as a community, not a building or a place where people meet, but when I talk about church, I mean a people as a community, as a group who glorifies God through our love for Him, our love for one another, through our words, our actions, and the relationships that we have with one another. So when I talk about church, that's what I mean. And so church planner is someone who goes and starts up these communities, basically. The next question would be, why international? Well, if you just read the news or maybe even look around you where you live, you'll see that the world has become more globalized, is kind of the fancy term for it. But in other words, people are moving from their home countries to other countries to live or to stay for a couple years or maybe even a couple months, depending on the situation. In fact, an interesting fact, if you were to put everyone outside their home, who's outside their home country, into one country, you actually have the 5th largest populated country in the world. So that gives you an idea of just how many people are outside of their home countries. And imagine being one of those people that you walk into this place where you don't know the language, you don't know the practices, you don't even know how to pump gas in your car, right? So you walk into this place and you have no idea where to go, who to meet. All you know is you're there for your specific purpose that you've come there for. And so internationals, those who travel and live abroad in different areas, they desire a community to relate to. So internationally, church planning provides that community for internationals who are coming in to plug into. The next question would be, why Rome, right? The Vatican's there.
Right.
And despite that, though, there aren't many churches that actually exist for internationals in Rome. And so Rome's one of the most diverse and international cities in the world. And yet there are few churches here and few communities specifically designed for them. In fact, Kagan, Catherine, let me put in perspective for you. If we were to take all of the internationals in Rome and in the surrounding area in Rome and put them into one city, it would be about the size of Oklahoma City. And so now imagine OKC with no churches speaking English, understanding and accepting different cultures, joyfully receiving you in. So that shows just the need in Rome And Rome is such a globalized city from that respect. So that's why my family are here in Rome.
So it's interesting. We talked to a lot of business owners and about the risks that they've taken, and also, demographics that they're trying to reach and the markets that they're reaching. Now yours is a little bit different, but honestly, I don't feel like it's too different. You have a very interesting demographic that you're reaching to yourselves, but what's very interesting is that you're moving to a place where you don't even speak the language. So you're reaching people who don't speak another language. Tell us a little bit about that. That seems like a daunting task.
Yeah, it is. So fortunately, many of the internationals speak English because of it's the language of commerce in a sense. And so people speak language as a second, third, or even a fourth language, right? So as Americans, we have a hard time speaking two languages, but these internationals are moving around the world. They speak English as sometimes a fourth language. So with that, they're able to communicate and they're able to understand. So we do our church in English. Of course, going from language to language, there are different nuances and different words that tend to not communicate directly. So we have to be very simplistic with our language, very easy in communication. We use a lot of kind of multi-sensory techniques to communicate what we're trying to say, what we're trying to communicate from the Bible as well. So you're right, language does pose a challenge there when it comes to establishing this community.
What are some major differences between the United States and Rome that your family had to cope with and adapt to? How do you guys work with your kids to help them adapt? Because I assume it's a little bit more challenging for them than you and your wife. Would you say so?
Yes, definitely. Good night. There's so many differences. I'll give you a few major hitters that really impacted us upon arrival. First, the values are so much different here in Rome than they are in America. And that's very generalized in saying that. But if you were to take the average American and then the average Italian, you would see these differences. In America, we value freedom, we value individualism and capitalism and the free market. So those are some values that we pursue after. In Rome, in Italy, however, relationships are highly valued, families highly valued, simplicity of living is highly valued. So you have these things that clash. And as Americans, we come over and we expect to complete our entire task list, but yet that never happens because businesses are run differently, the government's organized differently, how people spend their time is so much different here. And so that's one major difference regarding just how we treat our values with each other. And so it's been a growing experience trying to get out of our American mindset and enter into this Italian mindset. And likewise for our children. So going to school, it's so different how Italians handle conflict as well. And so kids come home and, they're crying and they're upset because someone said this or someone said that. So our challenge has been to help them understand that, well, people handle things differently and that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just figuring out how to love them where they're at and how to meet them where they're at to work out these issues and conflicts as well. Another major difference between the U.S. and between Italy is food, right? So you would think Italian food is amazing, and it is, but Italians are very particular about food. And the reason why, because there's a relational aspect that surrounds this. So let me give you an example. Dinner, for example, lasts several hours in Italy. So typically you'll have an appetizer first, and then you eat your appetizer, talk, enjoy one another's company. After the appetizer, you'll have a pasta dish, continue to talk and enjoy one another's company. After a pasta dish, you'll have a meat with vegetables, continue to talk and enjoy each other's company. After that, you'll have a salad. And then after your salad, you'll end with dessert. So that's a lot of food, right? But you eat.
I'm full. I'm full, and I am talked out by this point.
Yeah, exactly. But for Italians, they value that because the time they spend, it's not an hour dinner. I mean, this lasts 2 to 3 hours, sometimes even 4 if it's a holiday like Christmas. And so that time is spent just enjoying one another and spending time around food. So they highly value food from that respect because of the relationship that it leads into.
That's so cool. And that's so just beyond anything I know. As somebody who's never even left the country, I'm more in like the state of your kids, like this is something that I didn't even know anything about. So I want to talk about your kids for just a second, because, you were talking about like how they're handling the conflict and stuff. Tell me, who is on this journey with you and your wife, and then how old are your kids?
Yes, so we have 4 girls, which is completely anomaly here in Italy. So the most kids Italians typically have are 2. Most of them have 1. But so they see us with 4 kids, and they wonder what kind of people.
So you're the freak show.
We are the freak show. We walk around the city, and everyone's just looking at us. And so, but our oldest right now is 7. And then the next one is 6, and then we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So they're relatively close in age. All have complete different personalities, though.
That is great.
You mentioned to me before the podcast that there's some statistics of missionaries, church planners not making it in these environments for a very long time.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And then how are you guys overcoming that?
So I think the number one reason is between team conflict, actually. So missionaries come into a situation like this, or even those who have jobs and move abroad come into a situation where they're expecting some difficulty with the transition. It's natural. It's a whole nother language, a whole nother world. So you expect that difficulty there. So you come in braced for it. But what you don't come in braced for several times, in many cases, is the people that are with you. So in a job, your coworkers, right, as missionaries, the team that comes over, there are things that people just don't think about when it comes to how to handle conflict, how to prepare and think about different schedules, whether they're singles or families, and all of these revolving things that bring people together to accomplish a mission or a goal. And you have to be in it together. And so many people fail because they can't get along with the people they work with in an international setting, or the people that you come over with to accomplish your goals. And so that's one major area where people fall out the first year and even 2 years. Of course, the second area is not adapting to the culture and not being able to meet the people where they're at, and conflicts and relationships not being established with those that are surrounding you in your day-to-day life as well, other than your team members. So those are some big areas when it comes to relationships that cause people to fall away, whether you're an international businessman, a refugee, or a missionary.
Catherine, does this not sound just like things that we've been hearing in like our Startup Accelerator, and from other people who have started businesses that we've sought mentorships from? It's so funny. All of the things are the same.
Oh, exactly. And you talk about the risk. I mean, we're all taking some sort of risk, but this is very similar to an entrepreneur journey. And Chris, I don't know if you consider yourself an entrepreneur or not, but it does sound exactly like what our team is going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've told us multiple times, one of the first things when we started was they said, Kagan, just know that your team may not be the same in a year. Also, teams are sometimes what causes you to fail dramatically.
Yes.
Right.
And So we've been really focusing on our team and making sure that we're a tight-knit group and that we can handle conflict. And, you know, I say we haven't had major conflict, but I thank the Lord for that, because I think it's how we've all been united together, that we can talk, we can be transparent with one another. And that is something that most people don't even want to step into. Transparency is really difficult.
Yes.
Especially in the midst of trials.
Yes, it is. And when you mix together different personalities, different likes and different strengths as well as weaknesses, figuring out how to be transparent with one another, but also considering each other and each other's opinion on the same level as yours, if not better than yours, and taking that kind of humble step back and say, okay, I don't know everything.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and that's so difficult.
And also, you know, not just speaking about the team and the people that you're working with, but talking also about the level of risk. And so the conversation that we've had to have several times as entrepreneurs is, what are we willing to give up to put extra work into BriteBee? What is it that we're willing and able to sacrifice, you know, because it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not Monday through Friday. And Chris, you're in that same boat. And so there was a ton of risk in you taking this leap and uprooting your family. And what was your risk? I mean, what did you leave behind? Did you leave a comfortable job? You know, tell us what your risk was when you left.
Yeah, so we had a very, very comfortable life. So we lived in Texas and then moved to Oklahoma. I had a great job in the oil and gas industry and was blessed by that. And we had great neighbors, got along with all of our neighbors. Our family lives in Texas as well, so they weren't too far away. And so life was extremely comfortable for us. And so that didn't make it easy by any stretch of the imagination in leaving. But, you know, we had a specific vision for our family, a specific calling that we were pursuing after. And we knew that's what we wanted to drive towards. And so it took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of us keeping our eyes on Christ and his promises in his scripture, and knowing that for our family, specifically where we were at was comfortable. It was great, but that was not the end all to be all. And you're right, Catherine, it was several risks and just preparing to go, right? So the conversations with families and with friends and funding. Yes, and the funding for this journey as well. And so I remember the day that we sold our home there in Oklahoma, actually, and it was so surreal saying goodbye to our neighbors in the house and several of our close friends, including you, Kagan. And just know,
I'm still
I know, but just knowing that we may be back to visit, but that's not our life anymore. It's a whole nother world. And I know people who jump out and who are entrepreneurs and take risks in business. Maybe you don't have to move, right? Maybe you can stay in your home, your community, but leaving your job or making changes in your lifestyle or sacrificing comforts to save money, right, for your business. I mean, these are big transitions that you do have to sacrifice, and there's a risk there. And we could have come over here to Italy, where I'm at right now, doing this podcast, and completely failed, and have to return home. And so, by God's grace, that hasn't happened, and we pray that it doesn't. But there are a lot of risks in changing your life.
I'm just absolutely fascinated. I mean, I could question you to death right now, but you know, to be, you know, completely frank, this is not a conventional lifestyle to most people that are probably going to hear this. I mean, when you said that you were doing this, did people look at you like you were
crazy? Oh
yeah,
people wondered what in the world what we were thinking.
even people with the same belief, and they've said that they believe the same thing that you do, and they've said that you are still crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow when you think about just the logistics in all of it, not to mention the what ifs that can go wrong and whatnot. And really, what it came down to was our faith and our trust in Christ, and knowing that He's placed that vision in our life and that calling, and that's what we're doing to pursue after it. And so that's what gave us the strength. That's what gave us the hope, and taking those risks and pursuing after that. And so, but it's to see some of the expressions of some of the people we talked with, and even my manager at my job, we got along well, great guy, but he was even taken aback by it as well. And so naturally so. I mean, this is not a normal thing, like you guys said.
Chris, I know that you have to be careful in what we talk about in regards to the people that you serve, but can you just give us an example, or even a story of the people that you're serving, because their stories are humbling, their stories are inspiring, and you have the opportunity to be right there with them?
Yes, I would love to. We've had many stories, many tears shed, many joys of laughter and celebrations, but there's one in particular that right now, actually, we have a wonderful family staying with us in our home, and it's a lady with 2 kids, and they actually had to flee Egypt because of persecution, religious persecution. And they were a part of the Christian church there, and the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a sect of Islam, a radical sect in that area, basically wanted to kill them. And so they ended up having to flee. But just hearing about some of the things they went through, and the tortures, and I mean, it just rips your heart out to think that this is taking place. And you may hear about it on the news or from stories from missionaries coming to visit churches, or refugees or immigrants coming through, but to actually meet somebody and look at them in the eyes and have them tell the pains that they suffered. And but we've been able to rejoice with them as well, because they've arrived here in Italy, and they've been able to acquire the legal documentation to stay. They're not having to go back into that situation. In fact, this past week they got approved to stay for 5 years plus an automatic renewal, which means they can stay as long as they need. And so it's such an excitement to rejoice with them in that, especially knowing after the hard stuff they've gone through, physical hard stuff they've gone through. And so anyways, they're such a sweet family, and to be able to rejoice with them and cry with them as well has been very impactful for us, and our kids also. Of course, the kids don't know that the specific details that this family's gone through, but they know they've gone through something difficult and hard, and it pulls them out of their box and helps them to see that there's a world out there that's not very loving, and not very kind, and not very pretty. But yet here's something that you can do to show love to somebody, to show love to your neighbor, right? So that's one of many stories that we have come across being here in this kind of setting.
What would you recommend to people when they say, I want to take a leap, I want to take a risk like you have? What are some things that you think of that you would tell them?
I would say just do it.
What?
That's right. It's this has been a process of actually getting over here of 3 to 4 years. This wasn't something overnight we decided to do. We did, right? So it took some planning, it took some time, it took some energy. It took talking to people. Most of all, it took us praying and seeking after God for wisdom through all of this. And so, but there was that initial, okay, let's do it. I remember having that conversation with my wife, Kristen, and one night after getting the kids to bed. We got the kids to bed. It was a rough day. We were exhausted, but we were just trying to figure out what to do with our family in the future. And I was in school at the time, and so life was chaotic. But this was something that was presented to us, and we thought through it, prayed over it, and then we came together, and both of us said, you know what, let's do it. Let's pursue after this. And so there was that initial, you know what, we need to pursue after it. And let's just make the leap, make the jump. So that's where it starts, right? Choosing to make that jump and being committed to that. I think that goes a long ways, because then when you're a year, 2 years, 3 years into it, and you feel like you've gotten nowhere, you can look back into that one moment in your life to where you say, you know what, we made the choice to pursue after this and to do it. So let's press on and continue. I think that plays a huge role in morale, if nothing else.
Side note for anybody who has listened to the podcast before, or even if you haven't, I am just like, I'm sitting here and I'm just absolutely blown away by the people that we interview and their stories. Kagan, can you vouch for that?
I just long to be over there with him right now so that I can experience what he's experiencing and be able to have those stories as well. And I know right now that's not where the Lord has me, but I want to be over there to be able to see it firsthand and to hear and to experience, because there's something about it to be able to experience what he's experiencing right now that is just so amazing and so humbling. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Catherine, but there you go.
Well, if any of you can't find Kagan, it's
He's
obvious
gone to
that
Rome.
he's gone to Italy. So
Stole him away.
Do not disturb. Yeah, do not disturb sign. He'll be back soon. So, Chris, I know we could talk all day, but I want to go ahead and go into your 5 key takeaways so that you can share your most important lessons learned with everybody who's listening.
Yeah. So the first key takeaway, learn to laugh at yourself. Okay. So you're going to make many mistakes in whatever you do, right? So if you decide to move overseas and go internationally, you're going to screw up the language, and you're not going to pronounce something right. Or if you decide to stay right where you're at in your town and you make a choice to pursue after a business opportunity or go after a new passion or new thought you have, look, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to mess up and have issues, and just learn to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously. And so if you can't laugh at yourself, you'll become frustrated, you'll become bitter towards others, you'll find it hard to make relationships. And so just learn to laugh at yourself. So that's my first key takeaway. There you go.
I've already made too many mistakes that I haven't laughed at myself about.
Second key takeaway, seek to understand the people that you're working with and that you're working towards. And so we all have a network of people. We all have people around us. Culture is a funny thing, right? So you can try to classify people as Americans, as Italians, but we all know if you call yourself an American, there are different parts of the states that you could be from and different things from that location that sets you apart from other people. I mean, even between Texas and Oklahoma, we lived in both states, and there are key differences between those states, and they border one another, right? So just get to know the people that you're with. This is going to require time. This is going to require seeing people not as a means to an end or to further your revenue or your profit line or to get what you want, but it's going to require you to look at people as people like yourself who make mistakes and get messy and get dirty, but seek to learn who they are, seek to what makes them drive, what are their needs, what questions do they ask about life and about the world around them. So seek to understand and know those things. A third key takeaway is seek the good for the community in the city that you're in. You could be in a large city like Rome, or you could be in a small town like Yukon, Oklahoma. But seek the good for the community that you're in, no matter what business you're pursuing after, no matter what denomination, what church you're in, or no matter what area of life. Maybe you're a homemaker. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Seek the good for the people around you. Learn the needs of your neighborhood, your street, your community, in the city. Pick a specific way to engage those needs on a corporate level. Maybe you join a movement going on, and also on an individual level. What can you do personally to reach into somebody's life to seek the good for them? So at the end of the day, we should be about people flourishing and growing and making an impact on the community and city as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, as people who take risk. Another key takeaway, the fourth one, invite someone that's different from you or not from your culture over for dinner. So this is something that we quickly discovered early on while in the States. It's a good way just to get to know people, hear their story, learn something new about a different culture, realize maybe how strange you are compared to the other people. But invite somebody over that's from a different part of the States, maybe from a different country, or maybe even just from a different town. Invite them over for dinner, get to know them, feed them and talk, and just have a conversation with them. That's a key takeaway that I have found has gone a long ways in helping me just to have fun with people, laugh with people, and get to know people and share the joys as well as burdens of life also. And especially as an entrepreneur, talking about team relationships, life is full of relationships, and it's easy to forget that, especially in individualistic society, because you're focused on tasks, you're focused on vision, you're focused on what has to get done, where you want to be, the goals. But at the end of the day, you can't accomplish anything without relationships. And those relationships are forged and start around conversations and around the dinner table. So I would highly, highly encourage that. My last takeaway as an international church planner, I can't help but just input this in there. There is good news. When you look at the world around you, you see the pain. When you look at the news, you see the divisions, the hurt. You see everything that's wrong in the world. We even look at ourselves and we know our own thoughts and at times how we can be cruel and think ill towards people. The Bible calls all of that stuff sin. And this sin prevents us from having a relationship with God, who's perfect and he's holy and he's above all of this stuff. In fact, our sin even has consequences, and there's a payment required for our sin as well. And that's what the Bible tells us. And so God, however, so loved each one of us that he actually came to the earth as a person, and known as Jesus Christ. And not only did he come to the world to take a human body and experience the pains and the tortures and of life and what's going on this planet, but he also died to make that payment for sin. And the reason why he did that is to give us that relationship with God. So there is good news. When you look around, when you see the pain, maybe when you experience a failure after you've taken a risk, you had high hopes, you set your dreams on that, and you failed, know that there's still good news. And that good news is found in having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And this happens by placing your faith in him and making a commitment to say you trust him with your life. You know that he's forgiven you and you're choosing to follow after him. For that is where true hope and true joy comes from. And you can even make that decision right now as you listen to this podcast by praying and seeking after him. And after you do that, find a church nearby and go and tell them about the choice you made.
Chris, we really appreciate it. And the 5 key takeaways sometimes seem so simple, but I think in our culture, it's extremely hard. I think it's extremely hard for us to even understand it. So if someone wants to talk to you more about the 5 key takeaways, maybe a little bit more about your experience, maybe about what you said, and wants to learn more, what are some of the best ways that they can do that?
First, you can reach me by email. I would love to receive an email, and then we can set up a call over the internet. And thank God for technology these days. We can see each other face to face. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to talk on the phone. Again, thank God for technology. We can talk on the phone for free over the internet, over data. All of that's possible too. So every means of communication you have, we have over here in Italy as well. So email me, reach out. You can email me at chrish@converge.org, and we can start a conversation up.
That's awesome. And we'll also have all of that in our show notes as well. We want to remind everyone, though, to make sure and subscribe to the High Five podcast, and also give us a review. Give us a review on what you thought about Chris. Man, this is a very different podcast than what we're used to, but it was so great. It's so good to have people that push us out of our comfort zone and understand a little bit more about who other people are in different countries and the risks that we all take and how it's not that different. So, Chris, thank you so much. We want to remind everyone again that if you are looking for insurance quotes, and at some point you will be, go to BriteBee.com, click Get a Quote, and you can search for qualified agents of your choice. Again, everyone have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Chris.